I think the better question would be, who's not wearing this hat today? Oh my lord. What a controversial race. For a race where really not a lot happened. There's a reason they call Hungary Monaco without walls. It's difficult to pass here, even when you have fresher tires, even when you're better. But we had controversy for the win between teammates. We had controversy between Max Verstappen and his own team. He was mad at his own team for strategy and whatnot. Somewhat of a controversy between Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton, again, because Max was just so pissed off at the end of this thing, he decided to send it from really far back and essentially wreck himself and ruin his chance at the podium. And then quietly, just everything else happened. I don't even know where to start. Do I want to start with Max Verstappen? Do I want to start with McLaren? McLaren, man, they are finally in a position they have not been in over a decade. And they don't know what they're doing. Just straight up, they don't know what they're doing. I mean, seriously, last week at Silverstone, we saw them have a great opportunity at the win with both of their drivers, but the strategy they put forth just didn't work. They refused to double stack, and it put Piastri 25 seconds behind, and he had the best tire option out there and was chasing down the top four. The only problem was there was only 15 laps to go, and you can't make up that much time. Meanwhile, with Lando Norris, they didn't give him the best tire possible, and there was some other strategy mistake they made last week that I'm forgetting. Anyways, McLaren, they should have like 4 wins this season, 5 wins this season. They have the best car at this point of the season, and they only have 2 wins to their name. I mean, it's genuinely absurd that they are doing this. And then today, they finally win again. They get themselves a 1-2. You'd figure, oh, they'd be happy. Everything is perfect in the world. Everyone's happy for them. Not a complaint to be seen. Only McLaren could make a 1-2 the most disappointing, most upsetting thing possible. Obviously, they're happy with the points. They're happy with the trophies, but they made it about as complicated as they could. Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris started this thing on the front row. Oscar Piastri got a better start. Oscar Piastri led this thing in turn 1. Oscar Piastri led this thing for the majority of the race. It was looking like he was going to cruise to a first career victory. Well, after the pit cycle had kind of gone through that first time around, Oscar Piastri was just kind of maintaining gap, had a 3 to 4 second lead. All was good in the world of Oscar Piastri. Then he went off, and Lando Norris was able to get a good chunk out of that lead. It was a 1.5 seconds, and he was able to get up to 1.2, but Piastri just started slowly gaining it back out, and he got it to about 2 seconds. Let's call it 2 seconds just to give a nice even number. It might have been 1.8. It might have been 2.1. Let's just say 2 seconds. Well, the power of the undercut is extreme at Hungary, and with how much these tires wear, how long it takes to heat up the tires, just the undercut, it's the preferred thing to do when it comes to strategy. So everyone behind's made their pit stops. McLaren has a pretty good gap on everyone else. But McLaren, for some reason, thought that Lando Norris was under threat from Lewis Hamilton when he was still a good chunk up the road from Lewis Hamilton. They would have had to wait quite a few laps for Hamilton to really be a legit threat to Lando Norris. And even if so, Lando would have fresher tires. And Oscar Piastri, who has dominated this race, he's been ahead of Lando Norris the entire race. He's maintained gap. He's even pulled a gap at times. All of a sudden, Lando Norris gets the preferred pit selection. He gets the preferred pit strategy. He gets to pit first, and as I said, powerful. That is the word for the undercut at this track. With how powerful, with how extreme the undercut is at Hungary, Lando Norris pits from 2 seconds behind. Oscar Piastri pits 1 lap, 2 laps later. Well, all of a sudden, Lando Norris is not only leading, he has a 3-second lead with under 20 laps to go. And at this point, it's like, there's 2 avenues you can look at this. You could look at this as, oh, well, Lando got the preferred strategy. He's in the lead. He's technically fighting for the Drivers' Championship because he's second in the standings. He deserves to go win this thing. He put himself in position, and they gave him the preferred strategy because of that. He was close enough to Piastri. He deserves to win. He deserves to fight for the championship. But then there's the side Piastri dominated today. It's Piastri's day. He led this thing for the majority of the race, and then they decided to switch the last second and give the preferred strategy to Lando and give him the lead. They screwed Piastri. And McLaren just shot themselves in the foot. All of a sudden, they've dominated this race. They've been 1-2 the majority of this thing, and all of a sudden, the headlines around you are negative. Everyone's viewing you negative because you put yourself in position where either Lando's going to win this race, and everyone's going to say, you idiots, Oscar deserved that win. He dominated, and you gave Lando the strategy. What are you doing? Undeserved win. Or Lando Norris has to pull over from more than 3 seconds up the road, let his teammate by, and Oscar Piastri just got the most awkward first win in a while. And it doesn't help that Oscar Piastri's manager is Mark Webber, who's gone through a similar situation with Sebastian Vettel. So if you want my honest opinion, here's my honest opinion, is that I've never been a fan of team orders. I've never been a fan of just letting a guy by, pulling over, just letting him go. When I say pull over, I mean like get out of line and park the car, essentially park, not literally come to a stop. But I think you should race your teammates nicer than you race everyone else. Like if your teammate's clearly better, don't race them as hard. But I've never been a fan of pulling over and giving your teammate position. I think you should have to fight for the win. But my biggest problem is that they gave Lando the preferred strategy. He's second in the championship and all that. After today, he's still 60 points back. And entering today, he was more than 80 points back. So I get we're still somewhat early in the season. We're past the halfway point now, I believe. So the championship fight, it's still a few races away from being a championship fight on the driver's side. But in terms of the constructors, you need a 1-2 if you're going to fight Red Bull. With Red Bull's recent struggles, you absolutely need all the points you can get. And you just made it unnecessarily controversial if you're McLaren. I don't understand what the point of this was. You're fighting for the Constructors' Championship right now. The Drivers' Championship is still too far off to be a concern of yours. I don't get why they gave Lando the preferred strategy. I don't get why they pitted him first. I know technically they said to hold off Hamilton, but Hamilton wasn't within threat. So they just really shot themselves in the foot today. That's the only way to put it. They finished 1-2, yet there's going to be a lot of negativity around this 1-2 because Oscar Piastri got his first career win. It was going to happen this year regardless of how today went down. Oscar Piastri's been driving great this year. He's been a huge help to McLaren. That signing they did of him, obviously, a couple of years ago, everyone knows about that, but it's worked out very well for them. McLaren's improved a lot. They've won multiple races now. They're fighting for the Constructors' Championship. But if you're Oscar Piastri, you look, a win is a win. You're going to take a Formula One win when you can get it, and you're not going to complain. But I think he would have preferred it be a little bit less controversial, a little less awkward at least. I think that's a more appropriate word. Lando Norris fans are going to say, oh, Lando, had the better strategy, and he came out in front. He was pulling away from Oscar there at the end. He was 5+ seconds ahead. He should have gotten this win. But then Oscar Piastri fans will clap back and say, well, no, Oscar was leading this whole race and got screwed by the strategy because Lando's McLaren's golden boy or something. So McLaren just shot themselves in the foot once again. They just made this unnecessarily awkward, unnecessarily controversial. And yeah, I just don't get why they did this. They just should have pitted Oscar first, gotten themselves the 1-2, and just no awkwardness, no weirdness. Everyone would have been super happy for him. Piastri's first win would have been so glorious and epic and whatnot, but McLaren just had to make it a little bit awkward. Yeah, man. Even when they win, they lose because they don't know what they're doing. So 1-2 for McLaren. Great points today for him. Lewis Hamilton third, the first driver in Formula One history to get 200 podiums. Didn't come without its issues because Max Verstappen, who we'll talk about in a minute, decided to send it into turn one. It's very difficult to pass here. Even the DRS just makes it still difficult to pass, and Max sent it. And I thought Lewis Hamilton had a tire going down, but he did not. Lewis Hamilton, a deserved podium, was in the podium places for the majority of the day, had to hold off Charles Leclerc, had to hold off Max Verstappen, even with an an attempted wreck. Every time Lewis and Max get near each other, they just lose their minds. It's hilarious. It's stupid. Like today was stupid. But Lewis Hamilton, 200th career podium, coming off of that win at his home race. Great day for him. 4th place, Charles Leclerc. Good day for him. 5th place, Max Verstappen. Where do I start? Max Verstappen is a 3-time world champion. He's won 60-plus races. He's got all these podiums. He's done so much in his career. Red Bull's in a rough stint right now. They have been dominant these past few years. They've won so many races. And up until about Miami, they were continuing that. But after Miami, it's been a struggle for them. They only have 2 wins in the last 7 races or so. Perez has been nowhere to be found in terms of competitiveness. Red Bull's cars are not as fast as they once were. They're slower than McLaren. They're arguably slower than Mercedes. They're arguably slower than Ferrari. I think they're still a little bit better than Ferrari, at least on Max's end. And it's starting to boil over. Max Verstappen is frustrated with the speed, the handling of the car. He's frustrated with the strategy team, and he is venting on the radio, which you're allowed to do. It's the heat of the moment. Adrenaline's pumping. Everything's going on at once. You're allowed to, but he just needs to calm down. He needs to take a deep breath. You're a 3-time world champion. You still have a good points lead on the driver's side. Constructor side, yes, you should be concerned, but he just needs to take a deep breath. And when he doesn't, he does things like what he did against Lewis Hamilton here, and he just goes in over his head. He wrecks himself, and I'm surprised the car stayed together, but yeah, this was stupid today, what he did there. Much worse than Austria. Austria, it was fighting for a win, and, it was just hard racing, and yeah, that was technically his fault, but it wasn't over his head like what he did today, sending it into one, locking up, missing the turn, hitting Hamilton, so that was a stupid move on his part. And 5th place, so I guess decent day for him. 6th place, Carlos Sainz, double points for them. 7th place, Perez, after starting in the back again after wrecking and qualifying. He scored points. You got to give it to him. He scored points. Good for him. After how bad this stretch has been for him, I'm convinced the Red Bull is so bad that Verstappen is just making it look way better than it actually is. But Perez finally scores points. His seat is in jeopardy. George Russell, same situation, poor qualifying effort, rallies back to get points, double points for Mercedes. Yuki Tsunoda gets a couple points for the RB. What do they call it now? Visa carbohydrate, whatever it is. 10th place, Lance Stroll. Lance Stroll gets 1 point, beats his teammate Fernando Alonso, Daniel Ricciardo, Nico Hulkenberg, Alex Albon, Kevin Magnussen, Valtteri Bottas, Logan Sargent, Ocon, Zhou Guanyu. Pierre Gasly did not finish, the only DNF of this race. Only one yellow flag I can remember, and it was that of Max Verstappen. What a race. What a controversial race. Like, this race, nothing happened, essentially. We had a couple passes here and there. We had some pit strategy, which was nice and fun. But the things that made this race controversial was ultimately just McLaren and Max Verstappen being pissed off. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't remember this race ever. But Oscar Piastri gets his first win, regardless of how he got it, regardless of what you think. He is a Formula One winner. Congratulations to him. Very curious to what that team meeting is going to be like post-race, what the next week is going to be like. But awkward, still awkward. So we'll see what McLaren can do. According to the F1 website, it's a 51 point gap between McLaren and Red Bull on the constructor side. I think that's accurate, but it's getting tight on the constructor side. The driver side, okay, I threw the laptop away too early. On the driver side of things, it's still a good gap for Verstappen. He's got a 65 plus 11. He's still got a 76 point lead. He's fine. Like, he's still going to win the Drivers' Championship unless the Red Bull turns into the Sauber. So, Oscar Piastri, race winner. Max Verstappen, heated. Controversy at McLaren. But, hey, we've had 7 winners this year. We've had 4 different winners in the last 4 races, 5 in the last 6 races. So, it's a fun season. We have different winners. We have different teams competing for wins. It's a fun time in Formula One, despite all the silly controversy. It's a fun time. So thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you guys in the next one. We got the Brickyard 400. It's back. It's so back. Thanks again for watching this video. I'll see you guys in the next one.